It's May 14, 2021. I'm Todd Dunn, and today I'm aboard my 1973 Allied 36 Sequester. Why am I aboard today? Well, we're launching the boat in 10 days at 9 o'clock in the morning, so I've got some work to do. And today I'm going to be doing some very expensive maintenance work that is a consequence of something I noticed right at the end of the season last year when I went to winterize the engine. That is, when I opened up the engine compartment, I noticed that there was a small spray of rusty water around the front end of the engine. And I figured there was a leaking hose or something like that. And basically said, I'll fix it in the spring. And after a little inspection earlier this week, I discovered that the source of the leak is the freshwater pump that circulates antifreeze inside the engine. Now, that pump is potentially rebuildable, but depending on exactly how bad the condition of the parts inside the pump body is, it could cost a small fortune to rebuild it. I tallied up the cost of the parts that might have to be replaced, and it came to almost $800. The alternative to rebuilding the pump is simply to put a new pump in. So I priced a new pump. Here it is. This little devil, which is a bronze pump, cost $942.20. So a little bit more expensive than parts, but it should be one hose and 4 bolts to install it. So it should go pretty easily. The worst part is going to be draining the antifreeze out of the engine, because the engine is a Westerbeke 46, and I cannot find any reference anywhere to an antifreeze drain. So I'm going to just have to pull the hose off the pump and drain the antifreeze into a bucket and set it aside. And then we will replace the pump. And as I said, it should be 4 bolts that hold it to the front of the engine and 1 nut to get the fan belt pulley off. So it should be a pretty easy job as long as the 4 bolts aren't completely frozen in place, because the engine is a 1987 vintage engine, and those bolts have been there since 1987, so 34 years. There's possibility that they're going to be a little tough to get out, but we'll find out. So bear with me while I do this little repair today, which is a relatively simple bit of engine maintenance that I hope no one else ever has to do on a Westerbeke engine, because the parts are so expensive. Okay, this is the pump behind here, and this is the pump pulley. First thing I have to do is back this nut off so I can get this pulley off, and it's recommended to do this with the fan belt still in place, because it gives it a little more friction and resistance to turning. So what I'm going to do is stick a screwdriver in here, and hopefully I can keep it from turning. This thing could be a bit of a task. It's probably one of the hardest parts of this job is to get this nut off. I may have to put some penetrating oil in there to do it. So let's see what we can do. And it's just going to turn. I think what I'm going to do is take the fan belt off, and we'll pull the pump with that pulley on. I think I can get at all the necessary bolts. So first step will be to loosen up the fan belt, which is right back in here. Okay, the fan belt is loosened. Fan belt bolt is loosened, so I should be able to pull that alternator up and get this belt off. It's always a bit of a problem with this one because of the way it fits. Can't loosen it much. Okay, we've loosened up the belt, and turned out the easy way to get it off was to slip it off the bottom pulley. Now let's see if I can get to the bolts. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I think that's the 5th one right there. Take a look at this. Yes. So now we just need to get the appropriate size socket to go on here. That's not it. And see if I can break these bolts out. One. And where's the next one? These are a little hard to find sometimes. Okay, there's one here. Yeah, there. Okay, so far they're coming out pretty easily. Okay, I've got to wedge a bucket under here because I'm starting to have a little antifreeze drip. So I'm going to take the bolt that holds the alternator onto its bracket out, because the alternator bracket is going to come off. And we will see what I can do. These are coming out pretty easy. And this should let the antifreeze drain down into my bucket. Okay, that one I think I can just pull out. Okay, one down. One down below it here. Should come out pretty easily. Then I've got 2 more to go. I just have to get to them. And make sure I don't undo the wrong bolts. Okay, that one, and my next one should be over here. Right there, yep. Am I on it? Yes, I am. Oh, so far, these bolts are coming out easily. That one's out. Now there are 3 different length bolts here. The next one is right there. This one may be the hard one. And then I don't think I can get my socket behind that pulley, but we'll find out now. Okay, sorry about the break. I did manage to get this last bolt that was here out with a very small adjustable wrench and a long cheater bar, but it took a while, and pulled the pump off. I could not get the pulley right here off, so I took the whole pump to local auto shop, and they used their big vise and an impact wrench, and so it came right off. But I couldn't do it. So now I'm just scraping the gasket off, the old gasket off, and then we'll put the new gasket in and install the pump. So this scraping is just that, scraping, and I don't think you need to watch that. Okay, at this point I am ready to put the pump back on, and so what we're going to do, put some nuts in here, some bolts in here, and get it lined up. There's the first screw, that, and get the others. Only hard part here is getting everything aligned. There. There we go. And the last bolt. Now we just have to tighten them up. This one in a little more. One down here. There we go. And I'll just let those sit for a little bit. Go around one more time, make sure they're tight. And then we'll okay, those are on. And while I'm here, I'll put the hose back on. Get the hose clamp back in. And snug it all down. And after this, the only thing left to do is going to be to the only thing left to do will be to, hose clamp's not lined up right, be to get the pulley and belt back on, and then put antifreeze back into the system. I can't pull that. There we go. And that's tight. Yeah, we'll just leave these for a few minutes, and then I'll come back, retorque the bolts, and we'll put the pulley on. Okay, it's been a few minutes for things to sort of settle down. And what I'm going to do is just make sure all these bolts are tight. Good. 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 And good. So everything is set. Pump is on there. We'll take this nut off and we will tap the pulley back on to get the woodruff key lined up. I'm just going to give it a couple taps here. And we will put the nut and washer back on and snug them up. Let's see what I can do here with just basic tools. Okay, I gotta go get the appropriate crescent wrench. Well, I left my bigger wrench at home, so what I'm gonna do is just grab this thing and snug it down with some water pumps, and then we'll come back and tighten it up the rest of the way when I have access to my bigger wrench. If I can get that on there and hold it. That's reasonably tight. So the last thing that remains to do is put the belt back on. It goes in here, up there, down there, and I'll just spring it onto the alternator, and then we'll snug up the alternator and everything will be fine and dandy. At this point, with the belt tightened up, the only thing that remains is to fill the system back up with antifreeze and bleed it. Now this engine, because it has a water heater that's actually about a little bit above the engine, what I do is go to the water heater, which is in my cockpit locker, pull off the top hose, and then pour antifreeze into the top hose until it's coming out of the top fitting on the water heater, which is the high point in the system, and that will fill it all up. Then we'll fire it up, see how it goes, and do it again, just to make sure all the air bubbles are out. So at this point, I have replaced the water pump after much fighting with it, because particularly that pulley was quite a task to get off, largely because the nut here simply would not turn. And the auto shop with the big vise and impact tools got it off in no time at all, after I spent 45 minutes fighting with it. Okay, let's take a look at the old pump and see just why I opted to spend the $1,000 for the new pump rather than rebuild the old pump. Well, here's the old pump. The body of the pump is in pretty good shape, but my concerns are the shaft, and I know the bearings are completely shot, and here's why. I think you can hear the bearings, which are not exactly smooth anymore, and there's quite a bit of play in the shaft. So I think that I'm at the point where at the very least, I'm going to have to put new bearings and seals in this. And there's an excellent chance that the shaft is scored. And I could tell that this was the issue because when I rotated the shaft before I took it off, I could hear the bearings grinding away. And it's pretty clear that this pump needs a lot of work. And if you have to replace the shaft, which costs over $400, by the time you do shaft, bearings, seals, and there are a number of other bits and pieces in there, you're probably looking at almost $800. So $940 for a brand new pump seemed like a reasonable deal, given how much time it will take to completely recondition this pump. I may do it just so that I have a spare, as if the shaft is not an issue. If the shaft is an issue, I'll just throw it out. Okay, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this little exercise in spending a lot of money quickly on my Sailboat's diesel engine. And if you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't, please consider subscribing to my channel to see more exciting videos like this one. And I'll just say once again, thanks for watching.